Great family-owned business, and I'm really just proud to be associated with Jay's at all. And thanks to all of you for giving up a precious Saturday morning. I'm glad that you're out here. I appreciate your time. Thanks to everyone at the Gaylord store for coming on out and for listening to this. I appreciate it. Today, we're going to talk about preparing for a long-distance hike. We'll talk a lot about hiking and a lot about the trails that I've done, and a lot about the gear that you need to do these sorts of things. But I want to say from the onset, I'm not the best. I'm not super strong or super fast. I'm not ultra light. These guys are the best. If you want to learn from the very best, you go see these guys. This is Andrew Sturka. He is a hiker's hiker. He's done insane hikes all over the country. He hiked the Brooks Range in Alaska. He was followed by a National Geographic crew. He invented the Great Western Loop. That guy is an amazing hiker. Now he has a guiding company. And if you want to hike with Andrew Sturka, it costs about $3,400. That's not transportation or gear or anything. That's just hiking with him. That's how good he is. The guy in the middle is Flying Brian Robinson. He's set all kinds of records, fastest snow times for Pacific Crest Trail. Again, he's an amazing athlete. He's run the Barkley Marathons. I've done all these trails, but I'm going to put the slide up again at the end, and then if anyone has any questions about any of these trails or anything specific, I'll be glad to answer them. But I'll run through these real quick, starting with the Appalachian Trail. But I was really only out there for maybe a week or two when I had this epiphany. This is how I want to live. whatever changes I need to make in my life to be able to do this all the time, that's what I'm gonna do. I just fell in love with it. And I discovered this whole subculture of long distance hikers, and they had their own language and their own heroes, and they had done all these various long trails that I'd never heard of before, and I just fell into it right away. And so, yeah, it took me forever, but I started in South Georgia, and actually, my first time in the Appalachian Trail, I did what they call a flip-flop. I hiked from Georgia up to the halfway point at Harper's Ferry in West Virginia, and I realized I was not going to make it to the northern terminus before winter hit. So some friends and I, we took a train, and we went up and did Mount Katahdin, and then we came back down and finished our hike at Harper's Ferry. It's a good way to do it. Relieves all the time pressure. You know, so many of these long hikes are all about a weather window. You know, you're looking for decent weather for a few months, and it worked out. And when I was done with it, that trail, again, just that feeling of satisfaction, like having reached Katahdin. It's funny, I was thinking on the way here, I thought I knew it all. I did this one big trail, and I thought I was suddenly an expert. It wasn't until I tried a couple other trails I realized how much I didn't know about long distance hiking. But I sure had a taste for it. And kind of the next trail for most people in sequence is the Pacific Crest Trail. Pacific Crest Trail is 2,660 miles. It goes from Mexico to Canada, and it follows through California, Oregon, and Washington. Here. And this is me at the start. That's the wall right behind me with Mexico, and they have kind of a symbol, a monument there that says Southern Terminus of the Pacific Crest Trail. Yeah, we'll start all the way down here near Campo, California. The whole state of California took me 4 months to hike through that, but really beautiful. I mean, the mountains in the Sierra Nevada, just some really striking vistas and places to visit. Oregon and Washington each took me about a month or so, and you finish up in Canada, 2,660 miles. And by the time I got done, the snow was flying, and I really finished that trail by the skin of my teeth. I didn't have really any winter hiking experience, and my phone was dead, and my maps were soaking wet and shredding, and I barely found the northern terminus of the Pacific Crest Trail. And I realized I needed to tighten up my winter hiking game. So when I came back to Michigan, I decided to hike the Shore to Shore Trail. Anyone here done the Shore to Shore? It's an equestrian trail. I did it west to east. Starts over in Empire near Traverse City, and it went all the way across to Oscoda. It's at 250 miles, I think. It took me about 3 weeks. And I did it intentionally because I knew it would be cold out, and I would learn more about winter hiking. And it was in our state, so if I needed help or support, you know, friends and family were nearby. That was a great hike. I learned a lot and it built my confidence. Then a friend of mine sent me a newspaper article from the Detroit Free Press, and she said, you know, the governor of Michigan, at the time it was Snyder, just proposed a new trail that goes all the way from Belle Isle in Detroit, all the way to the state and across the UP to Ironwood. It's going to be 924 miles, and it's not even complete yet. It doesn't even have a name. It's just called the governor's proposed trail, you know, that as yet unnamed governor's proposed trail. And she said, if you do it, you'll be the first, which to a long-distance hiker is a very intriguing idea. First, to hike a trail. You know, I think about Earl Schaefer, the first person to hike the Appalachian Trail. You know, he's a legend, he's a hero. And thousands of people have hiked that trail since then. I was the first to hike this, no one's hiked it since then. So it didn't turn out to be, I'm not too quick to let down something, but it was a very positive experience. And here's me starting in April on Belle Isle. And yeah, I hiked right up the state, using that clip out of a newspaper article to tell people along the way what I was doing. You know, they would see me with a big backpack and everything. What are you doing? I'm hiking the Ironwood Trail from Belle Isle to Ironwood. Since then, they've split up that trail a little bit into foot traffic only. I think it follows the North Country Trail, and then another part that's for multi-use, you know, bikes and stuff. So it's different than what I hiked, and now they call it the Iron Bell, as in Ironwood and Belle Isle. But when I got to Ironwood, I got such a reception up there. I mean, really, I got a police escort into town, and there was a stage. They had me addressing people, and I kind of thinking, it's just walking. You guys know that, right? But I told the audience I would forever call it the Ironwood Trail, and so I did. That was 2013, and I have a special place in my heart for the city of Vinewood. The people there are just really welcoming, and they're all real outdoorsy and into hiking and stuff. But while I was doing that trail, I got an email from the Michigan Trails and Greenways Alliance, and they asked me if I would be interested in being the first person on the trail. They had established this trail from South Haven on Lake Michigan across to Port Huron on Lake Huron. They just needed someone to hike it, to bring some attention to it. And I said, yeah. And I said, I need a new pair of boots and some ramen noodles. And they said, all right, well, how much money do you think you need? I said, $500? They said, okay, give me a check. I could have said no. Okay. But I had that check, and I thought to myself, paid to hike. I got a check for $500, they're paying me to hike. And it was great. It was a little bit easier. I went across, like I said, South Haven, all the way through to Port Huron. It was sponsored in part by Amtrak, and like I said, the Michigan Trails and Greenways Alliance. And it was a very positive experience. But while I was doing that trail, there's me starting in Lake Michigan and finishing in Lake Huron. The whole time I was doing that, I was scheming and dreaming for the granddaddy of them all, Continental Divide Trail. This trail is 3,100 miles. Again, it's Mexico to Canada, and it follows through New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, a little bit of Idaho, and Montana. And I was completely intimidated. It'd be the longest trail I'd ever done. Better hikers than I had quit this trail. I knew that. I had to have an ice axe and crampons, gear and skills that I, wasn't used to before. But indeed, some friends and I started in Mexico at Puerto Paloma, below the statue of Pancho Villa, and we're holding a map here, the Continental Divide Trail, and hiked all the way up into Canada, and finished there in near Glacier National Park. And if you do those three big trails, the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and the Pacific Crest Trail, they call it the Triple Crown. The Triple Crown of long distance hiking. And really, if you want to get involved with sponsorships, or if you want to be, recognized or known at all in the long distance hiking community, you really have to at least have done the Triple Crown. Once you're there, then people start to take you a little bit more seriously. There's me with my goofy Burger King hat on, the crown, the Triple Crown. And again, that feeling of, accomplishing it. It was a watershed moment in my life. When you were blinded by the... I was blinded because there was snow the last week of the hike, I think, and I had sunglasses, but they're in the back of my pack, and and if you can see there, I'm squinting so hard. I got so snow blindness. It was so bright out all day long, and I didn't realize how quickly it was catching up with me, but I couldn't see anything at that point. After that, I was talking to a buddy, and I was back in Taylor, downriver Detroit, and I said, man, I'm really sick of work and downriver, and he said, I live in Maine. If you can get to Portland, Maine, I'll pick you up, and we can start the Appalachian Trail from the north and hike south. And I said, well, I don't have, gear or the money to do the whole trail right now. I said, well, just do it for how long you can, a couple weeks or a month or whatever. And I ended up staying out for a little over 8 months that year. I finished the Appalachian Trail southbound, so at this point I had done it twice. And then I decided to tack on the Benton-MacKaye Trail. It starts at the same southern terminus as the Appalachian Trail, and it goes about 300 miles north up into North Carolina. And this map is a little weird, but here's Springer Mountain in Georgia, and this dotted line is the Appalachian Trail, and the red line is the Benton-MacKaye Trail. So you can see they start at the same place, they cross again here, and the Benton-MacKaye Trail finishes here. So this was, December, January, and February. I was freezing cold. I was flat broke. My gear was breaking down. And by the time I finished that trail, it was time to go home. My friends and family were, I think, worried about me. I told people I'd be home by Thanksgiving. Here it is February, and I'm not done yet. But I just can't not hike. The trail's right there. The whole time I was hiking that trail, I should go back to 2012 on the Pacific Crest Trail. I met these 4 young people from Israel. And they said, the Israel National Trail is the whole length of our country, and it covers all these different ecosystems, everything from desert to beautiful mountains. and it's really difficult. You have to go out and pre-cache your food and water in the desert and mark the GPS coordinates of where it's at, and then you just hike from cache to cache. I was really intrigued, but it sounded a little overwhelming, and Israel, I knew it would take a lot of time and planning to get over there. But in 2016, I was able to fly to Tel Aviv and went with a buddy all the way down to Eilat down here. And again, it runs the whole length of the country, and it finishes at the border with Lebanon.
How many miles is that one?
It's only like 600 and something. It's not too bad.
Oh my.
But I had 3 months to be over there, so I put this picture up so you can see more. The whole southern third of it is serious desert, like no joke desert hiking. It's the Negev desert. It's like you see in the movies, sand dunes and all that stuff. Really difficult. But then it goes into some beautiful farmland and agricultural areas. It goes right through Tel Aviv. This portion along the Mediterranean coast there is stunningly beautiful. And then you wind through these mountains and up to the border with Lebanon. And I finished at, that was the start in Eilat. And it's a really well-blazed and well-maintained trail. Lots of people in Israel do it. Lots of young people, they have 2 years of mandatory military service. And after that, a lot of them will travel or do something. A lot of them hike this trail. It's got ladders and signage along the way for all the hard parts. I met tons of cool people. I was out there. People come from all over the world to hike this. And I was glad to meet every one of them. Lots of Israeli defense forces out there. They're very kind hikers. They always offer food and water, of good sort. Good beer in Israel. Good fun. Good. I spent Passover in Tel Aviv with the family there. I had never celebrated Passover before. It was pretty fun. They partied all night. And there's me at Kibbutz down, having finished, again, that feeling of gratification. But I still had a couple weeks left. I didn't have to get back to Tel Aviv right away. And I heard about this other trail, you see, that goes through the Golan Heights. Now, the Golan Heights are between Israel and Syria, and there have been some wars fought there. It's contested land. Syria thinks they own this. Israel says they own it. It's patrolled by the United Nations. And there's a beautiful trail that runs right through the whole thing. You start here at Mount Hermon, and all the way down to near the Sea of Galilee, and then I went back over to Tel Aviv. Friends and family were worried because there's some tension there and everything, but I felt like it was safe, and met tons of cool people.
How many more miles was that?
This was an extra 100. Yeah, not that bad, and really good. The Sea of Galilee, not to mention historically significant and for the major religions. Did you come here on a religious pilgrimage? And I'd say no. And they'd say, are you Jewish? Is your family Jewish? And I'd say no. And they'd say, then why are you here? I'd say, because there's a beautiful trail. I heard about this trail and I had to hike it. Yeah, exactly. There are some minefields and such. There are some dangerous areas. There's signs everywhere, dangerous, minefield over here, minefield over there. One time I'm hiking along and there's one of these signs just on the ground. And I looked at it and I thought, which direction is mine? Where did that come from? What am I supposed to do from here? But there's burnt out tanks and stuff. That most recent big war there was in 1973, and there's still, you can see where tanks were blown up and stuff. There's war debris everywhere. But there's me at the finish near the Sea of Galilee, and I went back to Tel Aviv and came home. But the whole time I was doing that trail, I was in touch with some friends of mine who had done a bike trip. They were into bike packing, they call it. And it's a similar aesthetic to long distance hiking. When you're ultralight, you only bring what you need. And they had ridden their bikes from San Diego, the whole length of the Baja California Peninsula in Mexico, all the way down to Cabo San Lucas. And the pictures they were posting and the stories they were telling me looked awesome. So I asked them, could this be done on foot? And they said, yeah, probably. The water's an issue, but you could probably do it on foot. And so I took that ball and ran with it and announced to the world that I was going to be the first, again, to hike the Baja Divide Trail, they call it. 1,700 miles from San Diego to Cabo San Lucas. And then I got back in touch with my friends and I said, now tell me about this, the water situation again. What parts don't have water? And he said, didn't you read my notes? There's no natural water out there anywhere. there's no water. And I said, well, like, what's the longest stretch with no water? And he said, 126 miles. So I did the math, water is 2 pounds per liter. I need about, a liter for every 5 miles, or, comfortably 5 or 6 liters per day, 126 miles. That's like 75 pounds of water. I can't carry that. Why did I tell everyone I was going to do this trail? So I was trying to think of different strategies. Could I cache water out there? Knowing going to Mexico, it was a situation. And then I came up with the idea for this cart. It's actually called the honey badger wheel. And it's used by hunters. When they harvest the deer, they use the cart to get the deer out of the woods. It's a mountain bike wheel with handlebars and just kind of a thin aluminum rack there. And I strapped it full of gear and water, and I decided I was going to push this thing 1,734 miles from San Diego to Cabo San Lucas. It was a terrible idea. I hated it. The thing was a pain in the butt. I mean, overall, it got the job done. I finished the hike and I made it, but I like to hike with trekking poles, and this thing was like a wheelbarrow. You had to have both hands on it. If you took one hand off, it would dump, and all your gear would go flying. And it just didn't feel natural, and I ended up really despising that part. And I think I paid $650 for it, and I sold it outside of Cabo for, I think, the equivalent of about $25 US. But it got the job done. There's me having been the first to hike the Baja Trail. And while I was down there, I heard about a trail up in Canada called the Bruce Trail. Actually, I heard about it giving a talk like this, and the audience member said, "Have you ever hiked the Bruce Trail in Canada?" And I said, "No." And I started doing some research, and I thought, I'll go and do it like a wintertime hike, in northern Ontario. This would be great. This would be really difficult and challenging. And it was. This is the trail. You start at Niagara Falls, like on the Canada side of Niagara Falls, and it goes up through Hamilton and way west of Toronto, and then you go up all the way to the Bruce Peninsula, and that's where it ends up there. And I don't know what I was thinking. I hadn't planned it very well. I really didn't have any money. I thought I had some sponsorship. I got out there and wound up broke and freezing and did not finish. So my record as a long distance hiker is 19-1. Bruce Trail. I was miserable. That was a huge mistake going out there. Well, while I was out there, I heard about this other trail, you see. And it was in Ecuador, the Trans-Ecuador mountain bike route. Again, friends of mine were riding these things on their bikes, and I said, "Do you think it could be done on foot?" And they said, "Yeah, it should be pretty cool." It's 858 miles. You go from the border with Colombia to the border with Peru. You start in Tolcan, and you fly into Quito, the capital, and you start like up here and goes all the way down to the border with Peru. And it is beautiful. This was a great hike. Beautiful country, beautiful active volcanoes everywhere. The towns are not too far apart for resupply. There's water everywhere. I really enjoyed that hike. And there's me finishing it. Vilcabamba on the border with Peru. And the whole time I was doing that trail, COVID hit. 2020, COVID hit, and international travel was not good. They were discouraging people from being out on trails, but I had to get out there. So I decided to try and hike the North Country Trail as it runs through the state of Michigan. The whole North Country Trail is 4,600 miles long, but Michigan has almost 1,200 miles of it. And the headquarters for the North Country Trail Association is in Lowell, near Grand Rapids. So for all those reasons, and to keep it close to home, this was always kind of my, go-to hike. And so I did it. I started at the border with Ohio and hiked all the way up and again across the Upper Peninsula and finished in Ironwood, and again to a warm reception. And I've had Cold Iron Brewing as a sponsor up there for a while. This was a great hike.
Is that when your phone, did you lose it?
I lose my phone on every hike. I use my phone or it breaks, or in Ecuador it got stolen out of my pocket. I struggle mightily with cell phones, and I hate that I have to bring them on my hikes, but it's my navigation, it's my communication, it's my backup compass, it's my backup flashlight. It's just necessary to be out there. I should also say, of course, I always carry paper maps and a compass, and I know how to use them. So, I don't completely rely on the phone, but you know, if you're out there and you have friends and family that are worried about you and you're out of touch too long, they can call search and rescue, which is really the biggest failure there is as a long distance hiker, is to have search and rescue called on you. If you quit a trail, we're not quit. And if you need search and rescue because you legit fell or something, that's understandable. But if you need search and rescue because you didn't plan well enough, you're ostracized from the community. So yeah, not having a phone and triggering the search and rescue could be disastrous. But I finished that hike, and then I got talked into hiking the Appalachian Trail for a third time. Why do men do any ridiculous things during their life? Women. My girlfriend at the time was really gung-ho on hiking the Appalachian Trail, and she wanted to do it traditional, south to north, starting in Georgia and hiking up to Maine. So yeah, spring of 2021, we started out in Georgia and hiked up to Maine. She ended up having to quit the trail just after the halfway point. And we'll talk about why when we talk about the risks of being out there. But this was my third time finishing the whole trail. And I'm going to add the Appalachian Trail to the list of things I never need to do again. You know, Army basic training, Appalachian Trail, Hayduke Trail too. I'll tell you more about that. After I got back from that, some friends told me about the Arizona National Scenic Trail. There's a trail that runs the whole length of Arizona. You can start at the border with Mexico. It's 800 miles up to the border with Utah. And this was a spectacular trail. Really beautiful. You go right through the Grand Canyon. You do the rim-to-rim part of the Grand Canyon, you know, descend the south rim, across the Colorado River, and then up the north rim. It's well blazed and well maintained. This trail was a pleasure to do. But the whole time I was out there doing that one, I heard about, what's that like, the Superior Hiking Trail, which is up in Minnesota, and it's the north shore of, the south shore of Lake Superior, around Minnesota. This trail is 400 miles, again, really well blazed. I did it in late fall, so no bugs, and the towns are perfectly placed far apart for resupply, plenty of water along the way. I really enjoyed Superior Hiking Trail. Then, some friends of mine suggested, it's hard to read, the Hayduke Trail. So here's the story on this trail. When I was in the desert, when I was in New Mexico in 2014, it was harsh desert and everything, and a friend sent me this book. It's called Desert Solitaire by Edward Abbey. He's a famous author, and he writes eloquently about the desert Southwest. He was a park ranger, like in Arches, Moab, that area, and he has some definite thoughts about our national parks and how they should be developed. And I really enjoyed this book. And then I read this one called The Monkey Wrench Gang, also Edward Abbey. And the main character in this book, his name is George Hayduke. He's a Vietnam veteran that comes back. He winds up being a ranger, and you know it's sort of semi-autobiographical, but it also involves like environmental terrorism and stuff. You know, the Monkey Wrench Gang. I didn't like it for that aspect, but I heard about the Hayduke Trail. So it was named after the character in the book, George Hayduke. But the trail itself is kind of an homage to Edward Abbey. And in the spirit of that, it starts in Utah at Arches National Park, and it is exceedingly and unnecessarily difficult. I just finished. I just got back last weekend. I finished this trail. And I'll tell you right now, I bit off more than I could chew. It was a few things. First of all, canyoneering is a whole different skill. I didn't know that. And much of this trail is these deep canyons, and the whole time you're either climbing into them or out of them, you know, rock climbing, those sorts of skills. I'm good at long distance hiking, but this was stuff, you know, I knew it was going to be difficult out there. I even told people at my work, I said, I got about a 50% chance of finishing this trail, and I said 80% chance of surviving. And I know people scoffed and kind of laughed a little bit. 4 people died this year out on this trail. 4 drowning victims. 2 of them right before I started, and 2 of them right before I finished. All in the same place, Buckskin Gulch, which they weren't trying to do the whole trail, but it was part of the trail. They're dead. For what? To go hike a trail no one's even heard of before? The 2 people right behind me needed helicopter rescue from a canyon. It's just insanely difficult. The guys who wrote this book went out in think in 2014 and mapped it out. And again, just as remote as it can be, trying intentionally to stay away from civilization and from traffic and all that. And I struggled mightily on this trail. And I will add this to the list of things I never need to do again. Likewise, in all seriousness, I'm not sharing my maps for this trail, or my notes. I would discourage anyone who said, oh, I'm going to try and hike the Hayduke Trail. Because I feel that I could be culpable if someone went out there and really got hurt because I recommended or I shared information with them. If you want to go hike the Desert Southwest, do that Arizona Trail. Same length, way more fun, way safer. This trail was insane. I wanted to talk a little bit about, actually I want to talk a lot, about the gear that I use out there. You know, you don't have to have the best stuff. One time, Backpacker magazine interviewed me, and they were talking about gear, and they said, you know, what do you carry? I think they were thinking that I was going to answer with, you know, all the latest stuff and all this lightweight gear. That's not true. I carry whatever I could beg, borrow, or steal. I carry what sponsors gave me or a friend loaned me. So again, I don't carry the best stuff, but you don't need it. You don't need the very best stuff. You just need the basics, and you can get through it. Don't look like this. That's bad stuff. Yeah. Actually, this kid is a college student in Maine on the Appalachian Trail. They have these huts way up in the presidential range. Cars can't get up there. You can't even fly to it. The only way they can get supplies up and down is these college students load all that stuff up on a big external like ladder and carry it up and down the side of this mountain. So he was actually doing that service. But he looks, for all intents and purposes, like an Appalachian Trail rookie to me. You go down to Georgia in the springtime when all the wannabe AT2 hikers are starting, you'll see some outrageous backpacking gear setups, you know, from people. I mean, part of it is maybe they didn't know any better. Part of it is, you know, maybe there's a better way. The field is ripe for innovation. If you figure out a better way to do something or carry it, do it, but don't do this. Lately, I've been carrying Osprey. I feel like I've carried every brand of pack, but I've parked them over there. I've had a couple of these Osprey packs. I've had 4 Osprey packs. A Kelty, Gregory. I had a company called pack for me to my specs. So I've carried a lot of different stuff, but lately I've had very good luck with Osprey. I use a 60-liter pack, and you know, it's a good combination of. I feel like hiking gear is either on the durable end of the spectrum or on the lightweight end of the spectrum. You know, you can get super lightweight stuff, and the first time you go pushing through tight, you know, woods or whatever, it tears or rips. Or you can have really, you know, hardcore durable stuff, but it's too heavy. There's an older Osprey that I carried. For a while, I was carrying Big Agnes tents. They're really nice. They're, again, durable, lightweight. And when you talk about what kind of tent you want to carry out there, mostly it comes down to freestanding, a tent like this that has tent poles. And if you undo the stakes, you can pick up the whole thing and move it, you know, if you need to, which occasionally I have needed to. Or you can get tents that rely on your trekking poles for stability. You have to have those to set it up. They're a little bit harder to set up. They're certainly difficult in the wind, and you can't just pick up and move them if you need to. But I had good luck with Big Agnes over the years. On the Appalachian Trail in 2021, I had a series of broken tent poles, and I kind of got an attitude about Big Agnes. So now I'm carrying MSR, Mountain Safety Research. Similar stuff, freestanding tent, good solid gear. I love the combination of a rain fly, a separate rain fly, and then the tent itself is all screened because you can take off the rain fly if it's a nice night out and you just don't have any bugs. Some people go even more minimalist. There are men and women out there that just carry a poncho and they just guy out their poncho at night for a tent. You know, I say this all the time because it's true. Light is fast and fast is fun. Long distance hiking is all about being lightweight. You have to think about the weight of every single thing that you carry. The lighter you are, the faster and further you can go, the less chance of injury, the more you'll enjoy it. You know, it opens up so much more the less you carry. But it's tough. You know, I try to go through my pack every week and look at each thing in my pack. Do I need this? Is this helping me get up and down the hills? Is this serving more than one purpose? Because if it only has one use, it's useless. So, you know, I probably go more toward the comfort side with a nice tent like this. But there are people out there who They just cowboy camp every night. They just lay under the stars, and if it rains, they get wet. And if it's freezing cold, they get cold. But they don't carry a heavy tent like this, and they're faster. Yeah, that's me being upset with Big Agnes. And there's my version of, after the tent poles broke, I just had to dye out the rain flag. And it worked pretty well, at least for the last few weeks of the AT. This is an example of a tension tent, they call it. This is Hyper Lake Mountain Gear. Very nice stuff. Jerry Young. Very nice stuff, and but very expensive. This one's made of Dyneema composite material. It's rain, waterproof, but that's probably an $800 or $900 tent right there. This is my sleep system. I've been carrying underground quilts for years now, and I'll talk more about that at the end, because they make great gear, and it's a good Michigan company. They're out of Jackson, Michigan, and a quilt is just, it's made for hammock hiking. It's a top quilt, but I use it as a sleeping bag, and it works real well for me, and it's lighter than a traditional sleeping bag. Clothing-wise, every hike, even in the desert, hot or cold, whatever, I wear I wear a trail shoe, for probably 9 months out of the year. Only when I'm actually in snow do I wear an over-the-ankle Gore-Tex boot. Otherwise, I don't want Gore-Tex. I don't want waterproof. I want my feet to get wet but dry quickly. And I don't know if you've ever submerged your boot when it's a Gore-Tex boot, but it holds the water in. Sometimes for days, it just does not dry out. So the trick here is, these shoes do get wet, but they, like I said, they dry out real quick. So I've been through a dozen pairs of these shoes. Again, I'll wear the over-the-ankle Gore-Tex boot if there's actual snow on the ground. And I'm fortunate that really I can wear a size 12 just about anything. Some people search long and hard to find the right foot gear that works for them. I can fit into any shoe or boot just about. And I wear them from the time I take them out of the box until they disintegrate, and then get a new pair. These are oboes that I wore in Ecuador. I had good luck with those shoes. I wore Keen and Basque and Hokas and Ultras. I wore those. So there's advantages and disadvantages to each. But given my druthers, I'll wear sound feet crosswise. Sock-wise, I wear Darn Tough socks from Vermont. They're kind of expensive, but they are really indestructible and super comfortable. I went through a phase where I was wearing just regular men's nylon dress socks. They're super lightweight. You can get them for 3 pairs for $9 or whatever. They get wet, but they dry out right away. And that's a tip I got from Scott Williamson. He just wears regular men's nylon dress socks, and he burns through a couple dozen pairs on a hike. But so what? They're so cheap. These are sort of the other end of the spectrum. They're expensive, but a lot more durable. Camp shoes, people ask me about a lot of times. Do you bring camp shoes? And the answer is no, because they weigh too much. And if I'm just using hiking shoes, I can use those. But there are some advantages for river crossings, just to get out of your hiking shoes or hiking boots at the end of the day and to put on a different shoe. If you're in towns, you're walking around trying to get resupply or do your hiking chores, it's nice to have a separate set of shoes that aren't stinking and falling apart. Some people do Crocs, some people just do flip-flops, something like that. Cooking setup, I have my cooking pot and my stove over there, but real basic. You have the canister, it's Isopro, it's a propane butane mix, and you screw the stove out of the top. The pot is just a 1 liter titanium pot, and it's mostly just for boiling water. The foods I eat out there, as you can imagine, are all super lightweight. Lots of minute rice, lots of ramen noodles, these pasta sides, those foil packets of tuna, eat a lot of those. Summer sausage, sliced pepperoni, lots of cheese. You try to work in as much protein as you can. And then just tons of beef jerky and Pop-Tarts and Clif Bar. I'm really an opportunistic omnivore. If it comes my way, I'm gonna eat it. But the good news is you can eat whatever you want on the trail. The bad news is you can only eat what you can carry. So for me, it takes careful planning. I know that I eat about 1.5 pounds of food a day. So if I'm doing a 10-day stretch in between resupply points, that's 15 pounds of food. So you need to think about what you're bringing, how easy is it to prepare. I love those Mountain House meals. They're just so expensive. So again, I'm kind of a rice and ramen kind of guy, mixing cheese. That's the canister fuel that I use. Don't hear much of a first aid kit. So one way to get ultralight or to move toward being ultralight, someone gave me this advice. Look at your gear and ask yourself, what are you afraid of? Because if you're afraid of being cold, you probably carry too many clothes. If you're afraid of being bored, you probably carry a book or a Kindle or some form of entertainment. For me, I was afraid, when I was in the Army, I was a medic. And I was afraid that someone on the trail would get hurt and I wouldn't be able to help them. So I carried this huge first aid kit. It was my field surgical kit from the Army. It was weighed 3 pounds. And I had it in my backpack, I carried it forever, and I never used anything in there. It was a just in case kind of thing. These days, that's about it. Some small scissors, some dental floss, maybe a little bit of moleskin, if I get a blister, a little bit of aspirin, that's it. You think you need it, but you don't. I should say too, this trying to make your gear last as long as possible. Get used to fixing your own stuff, having to sew your own socks and pants and sew up your pack, all those things. I mean, there's nothing else to do in your tent at night, so get good at fixing your own gear. Planning for a hike, for me, is almost as much fun. The way it works, and this has been more than 12 years now this is going on, is I'll hear about a trail, usually from another hiker, and I look it up online, and then I start scheming and planning and obsessing, really, about a trail, and it won't go away until I go hike the trail, or at least try to hike it. So the planning part for me, it takes a long time. I feel like I'm very thorough. I start with usually an app. Try to find the trail on a navigation app of some sort. I buy maps, I buy books about the trail, and research it as much as I can. The next step is deciding on any given trail, am I gonna buy food along the way? Will I have the opportunity to buy my supplies along the way? Or should I pre-mail them? We call it a resupply box. So you put all your food and maps and batteries and toilet paper and whatever else you think you might need, and you mail it to a town that's close to or along the trail. So like for the Hayduke Trail, for example, I pre-made 4 boxes and mailed them all out ahead of time. And then I call that post office and say, hey, I'm going to be coming through there in a few weeks. I'm going to be powerful hungry. I'm going to want this box. And they'll hold it for you. On popular trails like the Appalachian Trail, the little post office, you'll see stacks of boxes, hold for hiker, hold for through hiker, and it's everyone coming in to get their resupply. So, there's advantages to each. If you send resupply, you can put in there whatever food you want. You can customize it and tailor it to the way you want, but then you're carrying that whole box no matter what. If you can buy along the way, you can usually buy less. You can buy just enough to get to the next town. The bad thing is you might have to resupply out of a Chevron station or something else. And for people who have dietary restrictions or they're vegan or whatever, that gets tricky, Sir.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Jerry.
Did you stop by the North Country?
Yes, sir, I will.
Display on the way up? Thank you.
I'll be glad to see you again. Jerry Allen is been in charge of the Midland Mackinac Trail for a long, long time. He's a legend hiking trails in Michigan. And when I came through during that Ironman Trail, he and Connie were so generous. They brought me into their home. They fed me. Through the night sleep. They let me do laundry. Jerry is what we call a trail angel. people that help hikers are trail angels. Thank you, sir. I'll be on in a little bit. I think I want to talk for a little bit about trail etiquette, just because on the Appalachian Trail in 2021, I saw some really horrendous, bordering on offensive behavior. First of all, everyone knows bikes yield to hikers. Everyone yields to hikers, except hikers yield to horses. So, most importantly, or also important, uphill takes right away. There's nothing worse than climbing up the side of a steep mountain. You're trying to stay focused, and here comes a whole line of people just taking up the whole trail, knocking you off. Uphill has right away. They should step aside. Don't be blowing up your pack on the trail. Don't camp on. Don't put your tent on the trail. Don't play loud music on the trail. You know, these are things that I'm not sure how it happens. I think at least with the Appalachian Trail, people get out there and they get into like a little clique or a group of other hikers, and they decide for themselves, you know, what's okay and what's not, without realizing there's sort of a governing, you know, body of principles to be polite and to let other people out there enjoy the outdoors. You know, leave no trace is a very important philosophy to me, and you know, basically means, you know, pack out what you bring in. But there's other things that go along with it, not disturbing wildlife. Yeah, these are all very important things to me, but there are people who, man, they take it too far. I tell the story a lot. I'm sure some of you heard it, but I was on the Appalachian Trail and this guy was eating an apple. We were up in New York, and this guy is sitting in camp and he's eating an apple and he takes the core and he chucks it. And this other guy says, "What are you doing?" He said, "What do you mean?" I finished my apple. And he said, "Leave no trace. You can't throw that apple core." I said, "Well, I mean, first of all, it's going to biodegrade in a few days. Second of all, we're surrounded by apple trees. They grow around here everywhere. I don't think that's such a big deal." And the other guy said, "Leave no trace. It's not ambiguous. Don't leave anything that wasn't there already. Pick up your apple core." And the other guy was like, "I'm not littering. It's gonna." And they went back and forth until I walked away. But there are people who are almost, you know, militant about leave no trace and have no problem correcting other people. Me, it's important for me to follow these principles. You know, I might nudge someone or coach them up a little bit if they're obviously breaking the rules, but I don't go around like leave no trace police or anything. So when you go out there, especially for weeks or months at a time, you assume risks, obviously. You could get injured, you could get sick. For me, on this last trail, the Hayduke Trail, I could have fallen on my death any number of times. One of the many rivers that I had to ford that was way too deep with fast-moving water. Looking back, I didn't want to take that level of risk. That's too much. But again, you go out there, you're going to take some risk. In 2021, when I hiked with my then girlfriend, we knew that getting bit by a tick and getting Lyme disease was a risk, and she did get bit. You can see this is, if you Google Lyme disease, it shows you this information. This was her shoulder when she got home, and she was sick for months and months and months. You get Lyme disease for life. It doesn't go away. You can't cure it. It can go into remission, but she was really messed up for a while, and it's a wide variety of symptoms. It's very hard to treat, but she knew right when it hit. Just one day she said, "I don't feel right, and I'm going home." And I was like, "Whoa, I mean, don't quit just on a whim like that, you know, give it a couple days and see how you feel." And I'm so glad that she took her own advice. She went home and got diagnosed right away, got on antibiotics right away, but even a year later, she was still really struggling. Lyme disease, it's a risk of going out there. Real quick, I just want to talk about a few of the companies that have helped me along the way. Most recently, Jay's Sporting Goods. Again, so thrilled to even be associated with a good company like Jay's and the Poet family. Thank you to Emily Bennett for bringing me out here. Good folks. And Cold Iron Brewing up in Ironwood, just salt of the earth people, and they had a really nice kind of reception for me when I got up there last time. Good folks. Underground Quilts. Again, these guys are out of Jackson, and really cool company. So I called them in 2014, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to hike the Baja Divide Trail in Mexico. It's going to be super hot. I need a sleeping bag, but I don't need a big down mummy bag." And they actually had me out to Jackson, and they let me help build this quilt. I mean, to the extent that I could, but you know, all the sewing and stuff they were doing. But Paul and Missy McWalters are the owners, and they're just really, really cool people. since then, they built me one other quilt to my specs. It's expensive gear, and I'm flattered that they give it to me for free. But yeah, next time you think about a sleeping bag, think quilt instead, and look up Underground Quilts on Jackson. Stormy Comer, they make the iconic Encore cap. This one's in dark green. These are handmade in Ironwood, Michigan, and very cool people. I had a Cromer. It was a gift from my brother when I was young, and someone sent it to me on the trail. They thought I was going to be cold, and they sent it to me, and I didn't need it, and I couldn't carry it, and I couldn't afford to send it back home, and so I just left it. I left it at a post office, and it broke my heart. And somehow, Stormy Cromer heard about that, and when I got up there, they gave me the full factory tour, and they gave me a new Cromer. Since then, I've got probably 4 or 5. I wear the rimless version now, but they sell Stormy Cromers here. So after this, go on out and check out their display, see if there's a hat that strikes your fancy. Far Out Guides. So in 2012, I was getting ready to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, and I bought this little book. It's just called Pocket PCT, and it's barely more than the topography and sort of the major, landmarks along the way. And this book helped, this information helped me get through the Pacific Crest Trail. And while I was out there, I met the author. His name's Paul, and he and his wife were hiking the trail. And I said, "Hey, Paul from Pocket PTC," and I had him sign my book, and a really nice couple. And we stayed friends over the years. And then they paired up with another guy. His trail name is Guthook, and they made Guthook's guides. And basically, it's a navigation app on your phone, but designed for long-distance hikers. It shows you, all the important stuff that's coming up. It has things like you can comment on stuff, and then next time you upload, people behind you can see the latest information on where water is, or don't go here, there's a bear, whatever the important information is. And perhaps most importantly, even if you don't have cell signal, with Far Out, you can see where you're at and where the trail is on your phone, even if you don't have any signal. And it's just a whole nother layer of safety. It adds to the enjoyment for me. I can enjoy the trail a little bit more because I know where I'm at and I'm not less likely to get lost. They changed their name from Guthook's to Far Out. Now they have maps for trails all over the place. And they've been very generous to me over the years. I do some beta testing and stuff for them, and they give me all the free software. I'm grateful to Paul Bonner and Far Out Guides. Like I said, I like to read a lot, and I have some of these books up here. A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson was made into a movie, I think, a few years ago. That's about his, and it's good. It's funny. The book is a really good source of history of the Appalachian Trail. He rips on the Forest Service a lot in there. He's got some things to say, but it's a shared experience. That first time buying the gear, not exactly sure what you're doing, you go out there and make all the mistakes. That was Bill Bryson for sure. Walking the Spring is by Earl Schaefer. He was the first person to hike the Appalachian Trail. 1948. He just got out of World War II. He admitted that he was shell-shocked, and he decided to hike what used to be called the Government Trail. So he started at Springer Mountain and hiked to Maine. First person to do it, and wrote this great book along the way, which has beautiful descriptions of the trail, and he wrote poetry and songs and stuff. He was a great ambassador for the Appalachian Trail, and everyone should read his book. The Long Trails by Liz Thomas. Liz Snorkel Thomas is a very accomplished hiker and a friend of mine. She's an author, and she started her own gear review company called Treeline Review. In her book, it's for beginners, but every time I go on a trail, I just go through it one more time to see if I'm missing any of the essentials. Anyone that comes to me and says, "Hey, I haven't done a big trail before, I'm thinking about doing it," I tell them to get this book, Long Trails by Liz Thomas. You should read anything by Heather Anderson. Again, she's the greatest hiker, and she's a great writer too. This was her first book, Mud, Rocks, and Blazes. It's autographed to me, and I didn't even know why I took it out of its hermetically sealed chamber to bring it in front of people. Don't touch it. Don't even look at it. I read everything she writes. Through and Back Again by Luke Jordan. That was his trail, his book, of hiking the North Country Trail, and I recommend it because I'm in it. We met each other on the trail, and he wrote a couple paragraphs about running into me, so gotta recommend that. And Trail Life by Ray Jardine. Ray Jardine is sort of the godfather of the ultralight movement. He's hiked thousands and thousands of miles, and he was the first one to say, your backpacks are too heavy, your giant leather hiking boots are too heavy, you need to go as light as possible. And he wrote this book, which is ironically the heaviest book I own. But, you know, he is a legend. And I go through it all the time, just looking for ways to cut weight, really. I always say, too, that if I can't be hiking, then I like to talk about hiking. So please feel free to contact me. Send me an email or a Facebook friend request or whatever. If you've got questions about hiking a trail, usually I can either answer them or I can find someone who can. So please feel free to contact me. I'd like to reserve some time at the end. Oh, and I said I'd put up that other slide with the trails on there in case you have specific questions about those. But Emily, thank you again for having me out here. Can we turn up a little bit of lights and I'll take some questions if people are curious? Barbara.
Since you plan on, your next hike while you're doing the hike,
Yes.
what's the one you're planning on?
Well, that's the thing. I can't tell you
Oh.
because the trail that I went into next is officially closed. They had some flood damage last year and it doesn't reopen until May of 2024. And there's lots of permits and it crosses into Canada, so it's boarding crossing. And I'm gonna try and avoid all that and just go when no one's around.
Very nice.
Sweetly, sort of. I'll give you a hint, it's in Alaska,
When you going?
September.
Well,
But I'm not gonna be posting about it online and I'm not gonna say anything about it until after I do it because I think I could get in trouble. So.
how many miles?
Short, it's only, it's 33 up and 33 back, so I can do it in a week, 6 miles, I can do that in a week, a few days of travel on either end. And I've been to 49 to 50 states, I'm a bit of a completionist. I have to go to Alaska, I can't go to my grave not having been to all 50 states. So, yeah, if I can get up there in September to do this trail, I'll finally been to all 50 states. Other questions? Say anything?
Track of how many miles you accumulated for the public.
Yeah, I think I'm just over 20,000. Heather Anderson, 38,000 miles so far. So, yeah, that's, again, along with doing the Triple Crown, usually you have to have at least about 10,000 miles on your boots to be able to approach sponsors and, you know, work with hiking clubs and stuff like that. But I think I'm just over 20,000.
What do you do for work? Where you can like go and do all the trails in California?
I've worked a lot of different jobs in between hikes, you know, whoever's gonna, you know, my career is in cardiovascular medicine. I did that kind of work for 18 years. But once I decided on the AT that I was gonna hike, I decided I'm gonna do, you know, whatever pays enough scratch to get me back out there. Currently, and for the past few years, it's been this company, Fairlane Furniture Restorers. It's insurance restoration. Mostly I drive a truck and move furniture all day, but they understand my lifestyle. And, you know, I just got back from being off for 3 months for the Hayduke Trail. And as soon as my boss said, welcome back, I slapped down my map and said, there's this trail, see? And he laughed. And said, all right. So they are, you know, really supportive of my unconventional lifestyle. More questions? Let's see.
Have you encountered any dangerous animals, and when you do, or if you do, what do you do?
Many dangerous animals. Well, let's start with what are the most dangerous animals? What's the most dangerous animal you could run into out there?
Person?
Who said person? Correct, another human. They could hurt you worse. Second, mice and rodents. They'll eat through your pack to get to the food. They'll eat through your tent. They get in there and poop everywhere. They're a scourge of long distance hiking. Third, skunks. If you get sprayed by a skunk, there's not a hotel in this country that's going to let you check in and use their shower. I've had a skunk come into the vestibule part of my tent before, and I was a little freaked out. You know, you can't just kick it out. I was like backed up against the wall of my tent, like easy, buddy, you know. But he just kind of smelled around a little bit and left. But yeah, people, rodents, and skunks.
Didn't you just come across a couple snakes?
Snakes on occasion, which is especially when I'm in the desert Southwest, why I try not to use headphones because you need to hear. They'll warn you that you're about to step on them, but you have to be listening. I had a snake this last time actually come into my tent and coil up, but he was a western garter snake, not venomous or anything. He was just trying to stay warm. I have had some bear encounters in the past, and the worst one I'll tell you about. I was hiking with that young lady, and we were on the Appalachian Trail, and we found a campsite, really nice, like nice flat. There's a water source nearby. There's a place to sit. I couldn't understand why there were no other tents there. Where is everyone? I mean, this is the best spot we've come across all day. So we set up our tents, and I was sitting about 20 feet away cooking dinner. She was in the tent, and I looked up and saw a mama bear probably 20 feet away coming right through our campsite. And she had 3 cubs, and not the cute little cubs, like 2-year-old mean cubs. And I threw rocks and sticks at her, and every other black bear I've ever seen, dozens really, as soon as you say something or throw something, they're gone. Most bears I see are hauling the other way. But she didn't really run. She stayed just far enough away that I couldn't hit her with whatever I was throwing. And they just kept circling our camp, and we had to break our camp down and go. And I was nervous. We did a thing where like she would set up, break down her gear while I threw sticks, and then I would pack up my stuff while she threw sticks. And I remember saying to her, "This is only going to be a good story if we both live." And right when we were ready to leave, we found ourselves with the mama bear on one side of the trail and one of the babies on the other, and we couldn't see what the other 2 were. And that's especially disconcerting, to get between a mama bear and her cubs. We couldn't see what they were, and we just hauled ass out of there for about almost another 5 miles before we found a spot to camp again. So, yeah, I've encountered bears. Of course, up in Wyoming, Montana, there's grizzly bears. That's a whole different deal. And in Alaska, I think there might be polar bears and 3 different kinds of bears. So, yes.
Are you carrying bear spray with you? That's kind of heavy.
It is heavy. Real bear spray, like she's talking about, it's like a fire extinguisher. It's this big, it's heavy and it goes on your pack. And when I did the Continental Divide Trail, a lot of hikers, even the ultralight guys, were carrying bear spray. And I took a lot of flack. People were like, you're hiking up here, we know there's grizzlies and you're not carrying bear spray. And to me, at the time, it was a matter of probability versus possibility. Is it possible that I could get attacked by a bear? Yes. Is it probable? No. And is it probable enough that I should carry bear spray? I didn't think so at the time, but I took some heat for not carrying it. In Alaska, I will carry bear spray. I will carry that. And I'll also carry a personal locator beacon, which I've not carried before, but it's just more probable up there. But yeah, bear spray is an issue. Good question. Sir?
So when you're hiking like long trips, how do you charge your phone?
Good question. Battery power is precious out there. So number one, only use your phone like when you need it, but mostly just for navigation. Pictures. If I'm getting near to a town, I know I'll be able to charge up in a day or 2. Then I might splurge on some music or a podcast or something. But I try to just use my phone for only what I need it for. And at least on this last trail, I carried 2 backup batteries. And I just got done saying how important weight is about everything. Carrying 2 bricks like that, but it was essential. And what I do is when I get to a town, if I get a hotel room, you can charge it from there. Sometimes I'll go into a gas station and say, "Hey man, can you plug this in overnight? I'll be back first thing in the morning, and I'll give you $10 if you just let me plug this in." So a lot of people are cool about that. Sometimes I just kind of stealthily sneak out behind the back of the McDonald's and find an outside outlet somewhere, plug it in, leave, come back in the morning. Oh, post office are great because the little vestibule area where all the mailboxes in, that's open 24 hours. There's always an outlet in there. So I just go in there, I plug it in, put a garbage can in front of it. I put a note on there, my name and information, please not disturb, all that. And then I come back the next morning and hope and pray that it's still there. Because, like I said, battery power is essential. The phone, I need it out there. And I use that word carefully. Good question. More questions? Barb?
The way that mental health is nowadays, I'm sure that when people are frustrated on long through hikes, how do you handle like a mini meltdown? If you've had one.
You guys can see what she said, which I know you have. I absolutely have on nearly every trail, especially this Hayduke Trail that I was talking about. Brought me to tears. I'm not embarrassed to say. It was so, I'm leaving out of a town, plenty of food, plenty of water, got my maps, I got everything all set to go. I got a plan. And like Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. 2 days, I should say, 2 whole days of hiking. And I run into this wall of snow. I'm at 8,600 feet, it's the snow line, it's a 12-foot wall of snow, and I can't get up it or over it, I can't get past it. So the answer is clear, you have to turn around, go back to town, now you're 4 days short of food, so go back, resupply, figure out another way. But it's so frustrating, 2 days, I was like 20-some miles to this point, and I had to turn around, and I pace back and forth, and I wring my hands, and I think something's gonna occur to me, but Part of long distance hiking is dealing with reality on reality's terms. You're not going there, turn back. And stuff like that happened a lot. Very frustrating trail. The only advice I can give is, they say don't quit on a really crappy day, especially if it's raining and the weather's poor and you're just feeling like crap and it's been raining for days. You think to yourself, this is dumb. I'm going home. I'm done. Try to hang in there till a nice day. If it's a blue sky and a nice sunny day and you still want to quit, then fine, go home. But try not to quit on a whim. Try not to, try to hang in there best you can. Like I said, my only weapon is persistence. So I'm less likely to quit. But the Appalachian Trail has about between 75 and 85% attrition rate. Or the other way around, only about 15 to 25% of the people who say they're going to hike the Appalachian Trail actually make it. And the vast majority of them quit very early on in the trail. And the number one reason they give is because it's not what I thought it was going to be. Well, what'd you think of it? It's rocks and bugs and trees and dirt and not much else, So I think they just had, some expectation or conception of what they thought the trail would be, and it's not that, and they get bored and they go home, Especially young people. The average age of a Pacific Crest Trail through hiker is over 35 years old, because young people, not generalized, they get bored. It's they can't stay focused on it for days and weeks at a time. So yeah, it's tricky. More questions?
Have you ever had to forage for food?
People ask that a lot. Do you forage? Do you hunt along the way? And the answer is no. And it sounds silly why, but I don't have time. Like, you're either hiking or you're foraging. If you're trying to cover, say, 18 to 22 miles a day, you can't spend hours foraging for food or hunting. I don't have any weapons. I don't have anything to clean an animal. I don't have pots and pans to cook it. So, occasionally if there's, an apple tree along the trail or up in Maine, blueberries, I'll take advantage of stuff like that. But no, you're either hiking or you're foraging. More questions? Yes?
Did you train for any of these hikes, or did you just go out there?
Good question. People say you can either get in shape for the trail or the trail will get you in shape. And I go with the latter.
You also walk to work every day.
What's that?
You also walk to work.
I do. I walk 10 miles round trip to and from work every day, and I try and do that. But really, I'm in this vicious cycle of going out on the trails and losing tons of weight. You operate at a calorie deficit out there. You can't possibly carry enough food to, compensate for the 8 to 10,000 calories you're burning a day out there. So if I'm out for a long, long time, I lose a lot of weight. After the Pacific Crest Trail, I was down to like 145, I think. I was, way too skinny. And then I get back to town, and I still have this hyper metabolism, and everyone's buying me dinner and buying me beers and everything, and the town pounds come on quick. Yes, sir.
How many national parks have you been to?
I'm not sure. A lot of them, most of them. This last trail, the Hayduke, goes through, it starts at Arches National Park, goes through Canyonlands, Grand Staircase, Grand Escalante, Grand Canyon, Bryce National Canyon, Zion, all these famous parks. So a lot of them. And they're all beautiful. The thing I don't like about national parks is highly regulated. Some of them you have to have permits or an itinerary. The trails are crawling with rangers, and I don't know, I got to think about permits. I don't like having to pay to walk through the woods. The Appalachian Trail, as it runs through the Smoky Mountains National Park, it's really beautiful. And you can drive through the Smokies for free. You can go over to the parking lot and do donuts and cause all kind of havoc for free. But if you want to walk quietly through the woods, you have to get a $50 permit. And it just makes me crazy. So I'm a bit of a scofflaw in that way. I tend to, try to avoid rangers and permits and all that stuff. Barb?
You ever consider doing the John Muir Trail?
I've done a portion of John Muir Trail as it
The
coincides
PCT?
with the PCT, and it's stunningly
Yeah, I
beautiful.
know, that's what I
really.
want.
But lots of people do that trail. Again, really highly regulated, and rangers everywhere, and not easy. That connects to the PCT at one of the really difficult parts. But it's also graded for pack stock, so you figure if horses and donkeys and stuff can do it, there's no real terrible steep climbs. It's just a difficult trail, but I would love to go out there and do down. More questions, sir?
How'd you get your trail name?
Trail names, it's a weird phenomenon. It's they're nicknames. it's not so much about having a nickname. It's more about saying, we don't care who you are in the towns. We care about who you are out here. I don't care if you're a criminal or a judge back in the towns. How many miles have you done today? What trails have you done? And so we get trail names. And you will get a trail name whether you want one or not. And so when I was on the Appalachian Trail in 2011, this kid came up to me and said, hey, Chris, I got a trail name for you. And I thought, what? Because not everyone likes a trail name. You know, some of them are, Ass Trumpet doesn't like his trail name, but he should be front of and the kid said, how about Wolverine? And I said, first of all, not bad. And why Wolverine? He said, well, you're from Michigan. And he said, you're tenacious. You know, last night when we all stopped hiking, you kept on going. I said, I only went like another 100 yards, and that's just so I didn't have to you guys farting and belching all night. I know it's tenacious. But again, once you get a trail name, it sticks. And if you try and avoid it, something about you or something that happens to you, you'll wind up with a trail name. It should be organic. It should be someone else that assigns the name to you. It's an honor to give someone their trail name. I've done that a few times. It's a little pretentious to give yourself your own trail name. You know, you meet these guys on the Appalachian Trail, and what's your trail name? Fleetfoot, or lightning something. How do you made that up? Yeah. So the funnier names, they stick with you for a long time. So in the towns, in downriver Detroit, I'm Chris the Furniture Mover. But out there, I'm Wolverine, Triple Crown Hiker. More questions?
Any interest in doing the whole NCT?
No. Interest, yes. Ability, no. I can't do 4,600 miles in one. You have to start in North Dakota in the winter in snowshoes and go all the way across Minnesota, the Michigan's Upper Peninsula, down to Michigan, through Ohio, Pennsylvania, and you finish in New York, again, in the winter. 4,600 miles is beyond my scope of practice. Only a handful of people have done that trail as a through hike, and they're all better hikers than I. Yes, sir?
Have you ever heard the Trans-Canadian Trail? The Trans-Canada Trail?
I think I have. I think someone posted that to my Facebook at some point.
I think it's the longest ever.
Yeah. Depending on topography and weather and all that stuff, through all my hikes, I seem to average about 100 miles a week. So when I budget and look at time and stuff, that's what I have to look at. So, anything much more than, 3,000 or so miles is going to just take me too long. There won't be a weather window to do it. Yes.
Do you have some kind of aversion to section hiking? You only want to do the thrilling?
He's a snob, Sandy.
There's sometimes I say there's three types of hikers out there. There's day hikers, which they're just out for the day, and that's cool, but they wear cotton clothes and they stink like perfume and deodorant, and they're gross. Then there's section hikers. Section hikers look at a piece of the trail and they're smart. They bring the gear they need for that section. They have regular jobs. They're like actual humans, and they do it well. And then through hikers are just a stinky mess. They're just out there stinking and hiking, and I don't know. For me, I think people think, oh, he goes on these hikes because he's this really adventurous guy. It's more like I can't have life in the towns. I go out there because I feel like I belong out there and I feel like it's more peaceful. Day hikers, section hikers, and through hikers. 3 different species. More questions?
Could you flip-flop the NCT?
I could, maybe start in New York. Yeah, if I could arrange a different way, but
Joan Young, I think is her name.
Yeah.
Guard?
famous Michigan hiker.
Yeah, she flip-flopped the NCT, I think, last year.
She's in her 70s.
She's an amazing.
We're almost there.
Laura and I were born on the same day. We're both exactly 55 years old. So, Joan is an inspiration, and I'd like to do that. But the thought of hiking in the summer through Ohio and Pennsylvania, even the lower peninsula of Michigan, in the center of the state like that, there's just not much going on, man. Those are, you just got to trudge through those miles.
Yeah.
Hot, humid summers. Maybe someday. More questions? In that case, thank you all again so much for coming out on Saturday. I really do appreciate it. I'll be hanging around if anyone's got questions or wants to mess around with